Yo, what's good, fam? Agent O here, and I got an early screener this weekend to see Aquaman, so I decided I'd put up a early review. But like I always say on all my reviews, watch the movie for yourself first, decide whether you like it or not, and then go back and check the reviews and see what other people said and how their viewpoints matched up with yours, or if they saw anything that you didn't see. That's the beauty of this internet, is we can all kind of get different ideas and perspectives on things, but at the same time not be influenced by those perspectives. But yeah, since this is an early release review, it's going to be spoiler free. So you can watch this in its entirety without worrying about any major plot points being exposed of the film before you get to go see it. So that, without further ado, I'm just going to jump right on in. First off, I really think I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I liked this movie. It is a step in the right direction for the DCEU. It almost feels like DC and Warner Brothers actually have their crap together with this film. I actually liked it more than I liked Wonder Woman. So far, I think this is the best DCEU movie we've gotten, which is kind of funny considering a lot of people, I won't say everybody, but I heard a lot of people who say they don't like Aqua Bro. This movie, they kind of toned down the Aqua Bro, the yeah, and the my man, and all that. They kind of toned it down a bit because there's there's more serious stakes. It kind of felt like in the Justice League movie, he was kind of just there to have a good time and fight because he likes to fight. In this case, he's got he's got stakes because there's a war going on. There's a war brewing between the seven seas and the surface world, and he's trying to stop it. But in order to stop it, he has to become king, and he doesn't really want to become king because he doesn't feel like he basically doesn't feel like he's king material. And he doesn't want to have anything to do with the world, with the ocean world. That's just kind of like a brief idea of what the movie's about. I don't want to get too far into it. There's a little bit more nuance and whatnot. Those of you who don't know Aquaman's origins, you're gonna like. That's why I don't want to go too much farther into it, because that stuff all gets explained in the film, and I want you to be surprised as possible. Once again, I feel like Jason Momoa as Aquaman, I think he does a good job. I actually was one of the people that likes Aqua Bro. I like the different take on the character. And like I said, they toned it down a bit because this character in this film, he's conflicted, because of what's going on, and so he's got some self-doubt within himself. But at the same time, he kind of knows he has to do it. He has to do what needs to be done in order to stop the oncoming war. And I liked it. You got to see a little bit more of Jason Momoa's acting ability. I don't think he's a bad actor. I think he just gets tied up in action roles and he has to play the alpha male type dude, which I think he's good at playing because I think in real life he is an alpha male. But in this case, there was some moments of I don't want to say weakness, but I will say there's moments of where he felt vulnerable, and I dug that, and I think he got those parts off very well, along with I have to be the man of action and I have to beat up all the bad guys and everything. I also dug I don't remember the actor's name, but I dug the guy who played Black Manta. I thought he was interesting as well. I actually really dug Black Manta in this movie, more so than I have ever in anything DC. I think they did a really good job with the character. I think they did a really good job with the character, with the design of his suit. I thought his suit was really, really dope, and I've never been a fan of Black Manta and his suit because I always thought the headpiece was always so big and weird looking, but it works in this film somehow. The costume design did a really damn good job on that. I mean, you've seen all the preliminary photos and the Comic-Con images and stuff like that, and the suit looks badass. It looks really cool. My favorite iteration of the suit was in Young Justice, but this became my new favorite iteration of that, or version of that suit. I thought it was really nice. The special effects were really good. I think they were like way better than in Justice League. They were definitely a step up. When you see, I know a lot of people are going to make the comparison about Atlantis and how it feels like Wakanda underwater, and because they kind of establish it the same way that they did in Black Panther. So I get why people say that, but you kind of have to have that because there's a lot of world building in this movie because they kind of have to follow the origin story. It's kind of an origin story, but it's more of like an origin explanation, I guess you could say, because we already know who Aquaman is. We already know what his powers are, but we didn't know how his story began, and you kind of find all that stuff out in the film. And so you have to have that world building, and you have to have those scenes where you're going through Atlantis and you're seeing the city and the society and the people that live within that city, and you get to see the other realms of the seven seas as well as the film goes on. And I don't have a problem with it because if somebody can come up with, those that complain about it, if they can come up with a better way to tell that part of the story effectively, I'm all ears. But if you're just going to complain because it's kind of presented to you in a fashion that is similar to other films, then I mean your complaint doesn't feel that valid to me personally. If you can come up with a better idea and say, hey, they should have done this instead to keep it fresh, then yeah, and if it's a good idea, then I would agree with you. But if you're just complaining because if it's something for you to complain about and you have no kind of solution or no other explanation on how things could be done better, then yeah, you need to just sit down. To me, you need to sit down and just not talk because you're not bringing anything to the table for me. I'm at least explaining why I get why they did what they did and why it's necessary, because there's a lot of people out there that are interested in this film and don't know that much about Aquaman. There's a lot of fair weather fans out there, or they're only fans of the movies and not the comics. So that stuff has to be explained to those viewers. Otherwise, they're going to check out and it's not going to feel like legitimate. If you don't grab those viewers. Obviously, those of us that are comic book heads, we get it. So we're along for the ride. And I think they do a good job with all that. I liked I forgot his name. I'm bad with all these names, but I'm not even going to go through with all the characters. I liked Orm's character, the way he was portrayed. He comes off at first like that villain, like a straight up villain, and it could almost be considered generic considering what we've gotten with the Marvel movies and how they've been doing their villains with the last few movies that they've done. But there is some depth, and you do understand like where he's coming from, because he's tired of how the surface world has been treating the Earth, and so there is a mild environmental message in the film, but they don't dwell on it at all, and they don't beat you over the head with it. But they do have scenes where they show like, yeah, the Earth dwellers are damaging the planet and they need to be stopped. And so on one sense I can agree with him, but the way he goes about it is kind of foul, and so that's where the villain aspect of it comes in, because that's the part you kind of can't agree with. So it does add a little bit of layers to Orm and why he's trying to do what he's doing and why he's trying to do it by force, because his older brother Arthur kind of stands in the way of what he wants to accomplish. So I dig all that. Once again, I think this movie was nicely shot. I loved the action scenes in it. There were nice long takes. Like, it's crazy that James Wan was directing Saw movies, which I'm not a huge horror fan. I watched like the first two Saws, and I thought they were all right, but I didn't really check in for the rest of them because I'm not huge into horror. But it's like whoever they had, or if he, I know he had some input on the action, but whoever they put together a good team when it came to the action sequences of the film. Like I said, there were nice long shots. There was there was really good choreography, and there's a scene. There's a really big action sequence in the second act. I don't want to go into it too much, what like describing what it is and what happens. I just want to say that I think it was done really well, and it's two separate scenes in the same area, or two separate action sequences going on in the same area close by each other, dealing with Aquaman and Mera, and the way they intercut, it never feels jarring, like you're being ripped out of one action sequence and then put smack dab in the middle of the other one. It has a flow to it that works, and you never feel like you're missing out, and you never feel like you're bored, like, oh, I don't want to watch this person go through this. This is whack. I want to go back to what the other person's going through. No, you want to see what's going on with both of them. And it really works. It really works well. Once again, Black Manta was very formidable in this film. Like, I never really read the Aquaman comics too much, so I always wondered why Black Manta was such a threat to Aquaman. And in this movie, they kind of show like why this guy. They really show why this guy is so is to be feared. you know, and I thought that was pretty cool. Moving on to parts of Aquaman's origin story, with his father and his mother Atlana. I thought that the technology they used to like de-age them, the actors, for the flashback scenes was pretty nicely done. I personally think it was on par with the stuff Marvel's using. I'm sure they're probably using the same technology, but I think it worked very well. It never looked out of place to me. Obviously, you're like, well, they're older now, but because you're seeing these flashback sequences, it never looked like there was like a floating head on a body. It all looked pretty seamless. And there's a action sequence in that film that it's all one take, and the camera actually does a lot of moving around in that scene following the action, and it's done really well. I almost want to know. I want to see a behind the scenes thing to see how they did it. How because it starts off and you see Nicole Kidman, and she starts doing stuff, and I'm like, if that's really her and not a body double, and they didn't like CG her face onto a body double, then mad kudos to her, because she looks fit, and she looks like she can handle her. She looks physically fit to do these action sequences. So if they actually had her doing all that stuff, then mad props to her, because it's a really nice scene. Like, I was really impressed. Because, not just because the bar has been kind of set so low with the previous DC movies, excluding Wonder Woman, but this, like, what they did in there, it felt like something I would want to see superheroes actually doing. And to me, that's also one of the reasons why it really works. A lot of the designs in this movie were just really, really nice. I mean, very obviously it's very ocean inspired, but it doesn't feel like stuff that you've seen, like recycled concepts. It all kind of feels pretty fresh. Like, obviously you're gonna have ships that are kind of fish shaped and fish inspired, which kind of only makes sense because fish they've evolved to be able to swim effectively through the sea. So it only makes sense to take design cues from the fish, and ergonomic design cues from fish, and incorporate it into vehicles that are traversing the ocean. So I get that, and it works, but it doesn't. Like I said, it doesn't feel like they're just reusing old concepts. Like I'm tired of seeing uh, crustacean ships or crustacean armor. That's very it's played out. It's played out, and you don't really see that in this film. It all feels, it feels like they breathed new life into a lot of those designs, and then the creature designs as well. You can tell which, like when you look at it, and if you're like me and you like watching nature shows and stuff, like I saw where a lot of their references came from, like especially with the trench, the trench dwellers. I saw where the sea, the animal, the aquatic life that they referenced for that. I could see the references, the aquatic life references that they used in for those character designs, but there was other ones that totally they kind of went off with it, and it looked really good, and it felt, once again, it just felt really fresh. I was happy to not see a kraken or a Cthulhu looking monster in there. It was something that was kind of all its own, and that was really cool. Um, I I'm just trying to run through the gamut really fast of everything that I really dug about this film. The end of the second act leading into the third act and the final climax scene was pretty nice. It was really it I know some people will complain because it's a big battle sequence or whatever, and a lot of these movies kind of end their films with these ginormous fights, and you have that here too. But once again, man, it's a different location. There's a different set of circumstances. There's all these other things that have kept me interested in watching those things. So I don't mind those. I don't mind the big bombastic special effects extravaganza like a lot of other people do when it comes to these superhero films, because to me, I've always treated superhero films like martial art movies. I come for the plot, but I also want to see good action, and you're there to watch the action sequences and to see the movie kind of culminate to this third act where there's this big fight, in a martial art film, and and you're there for that. So I'm there to see that with superhero films. Can they do these differently in a way that we haven't seen before? Sure. I mean, if somebody is imaginative enough as a screenwriter, I'm sure they could come up with something, that we haven't quite seen before. So I'm open to new, refreshing ideas, but this was executed very well, and it served the ending made sense, and it worked, and it didn't end with the main villain just completely being a villain. There was room for growth, which I like to see, which I thought was nice, and I thought that was a welcome change from your standard superhero films where the villain either gets killed or gets put in jail, and that's the end of it. I thought the way they did it was actually pretty cool. I mean, overall, I think this movie is I think it's one of the I think it's better. I think it's like I said, it's the best DCEU movie that they've done, and I hope this is the beginning of them starting to kind of get their crap together and hopefully making more really good films so they can establish their own, like, I guess, DCEU legacy, or I don't want to see them do exactly the same thing Marvel has done. I kind of want to see them go in hopefully a different direction. But I hope this is them finally getting focused and knowing what works for their films and continuing to expand on that, on the things that work well. So that's gonna pretty much do it for this review. Like I said, it's spoiler free, so I had to keep things kind of vague. I didn't really want to really talk too much and give too much away. Definitely go check this movie out. I hope I gave enough for you to go on to make you want to actually see this movie. maybe I'll do a spoiler-filled review once the film comes out, just so I can expand on all the things that worked and some of the stuff that didn't work. Because some of the stuff that didn't work, I kind of can't talk about it without spoiling the film. So I probably will end up doing a follow-up at some point. But that's pretty much going to do it. If you liked what you heard, obviously leave your comments below, and once you see the movie, let me know what you thought. Um, like and subscribe if you want to get more content. If you want to see more action figure reviews or movie reviews, like and subscribe. Turn on the notifications so you get notified. I'm on Facebook, so you can hit me up on there, Agent Omega Man, and that is gonna pretty much do it. Until the next time I'll see you guys. I'm Agent O, and I'm out. Peace.